Right, so let me start again. We're not running the scenario at this point anyway, so it doesn't matter. So you'll notice that this gauge here is coming down, and that means that's the brake club, the amount of brakes. That's not quite the same as your brake lever. So your brake lever controls how the brakes change. So with your brakes at the bottom, that number goes up, so the brakes are now coming off. When that number reaches the top, so in different locos it'll be different. In this case it's 70, in a British loco it might be 21 or 25. Then that means the brakes are off and the train is now free running. If I put it into apply, you'll see that number goes down, and the more I put it in apply, the faster it goes down. If I put it back into a state called, so in this loco it's called self-lapped, other locos call it running, you'll notice it's saying exactly where it is. And that means the brakes aren't changing. They're on and they're staying where they are. So if you're braking and you think, actually, I need a little bit less braking, you put it into release, the brakes come up, and then you put it back into lapped again. Now I'm only braking at 51.4 psi, so I'm braking less. Brake release, up and self-lap. Put it a bit more on, apply, back to self-lapped. So you always put it back to self-lapped if you're not changing the air pressure on the brakes. So if I put it into apply, back to self-lapped, back to release. Take some time to practice this with the, I mean I'm using the rail drive, but it doesn't matter. You can see the lever moving on the HUD. So it doesn't, the brakes are not what the lever is. The lever is how much the brakes are changing. This value is what the brakes are. Green means that number is going up. Red means that number is going down. Yeah, so I've got a very light brake application going on at the moment. If I release, and then I put it back into self-lapped. So, let me see if it is true on this loco. So this loco is actually, the steam generation rate isn't affected by whether or not they're in release, which means it doesn't matter if you take it out of release or not. Certainly from the moment. Anyway, we'll see what happens when we get moving. Generally speaking, you should always take it out of release and put it back into the stable state, so running or lapped or anything you like. So you can really, as Coplopper just said, you can set the brake really precisely. So you put it into apply, and if you put it into a gentle apply, so that number's going down quite slow, put it back into lap. You're going a bit too fast, bit more apply, back to laps. Or going a bit too fast, release, back to laps. So you've got really nice control over the braking system. So that's called a manually lapped braking system. And what I would suggest you do is, before you drive your next steam train, practice putting the brake at various settings, releasing it, changing it, applying it, and practice that, and realise that this is what means how much you're braking, not the lever. So if you apply and you leave it in apply, that's just going to go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, and eventually you'll be on emergency brake. When that hits zero, you're on maximum possible braking. So don't do that. If you want to apply, stop gently, put the apply on a bit, reel it back into self-lapped. Doesn't this got triple valves? I would have thought it does, but it's not acting like it, Ed. So, and for the purposes of the example, it seems to be alright. So that's the brake. Next thing, cut-off. So this is the cut-off, which is the forwards, backwards, reverser control. And this controls the direction and also how much steam is let into the cylinders. So if I release the brakes, we've got it in forwards. If I now apply the regulator, we start moving. Now I've taken the regulator off now, so we're just coasting a bit. I just need to change the junction at the end here so that we can move forward. So if I put the regulator on now, thanks for the host, K-Dog, we start moving. Now what you'll find is, what I'm doing here, by the way, is if you turn the HUD off, so press F3 or F4 depending on which HUD you've got, and press F5 a couple of times, you get all this junk in the top left corner, which is really useful. So if I apply the power, you'll see that all these, just the steam generation and steam usage rate. Now what happens, now you'll notice here, at the moment, my steam usage is actually above my steam generation by quite some time, which means that my boiler pressure is going down. Boiler pressure is that one. Now that means my boiler pressure is going down. If I move the cutoff back towards the middle, it goes green. There you go. So now I've changed, made the loco more efficient. Let's stop it a minute. Going a bit of, so put the brakes down and then we'll put them in self-lapped. The train is now gently slowing down at a very even rate. that's about how we. So I want to control it, stop a bit more, put it back into apply, back into self-lapped. You can see we're slowing down faster, but we're still slowing down at a nice even rate. Release the brakes, and then once they get back up to 70, we're going uphill actually, that's why we continue to stop, but the brakes are off. So essentially what you find is that as you speed up, you need to be bringing this cutoff back towards the middle. Don't go below about 15-20%. And you'll find the right place to do it, and you'll find when's the right place to do it. Now I'm just going to carry on going forwards, because we're doing, like I said, we're going to do the scenario properly later on. Right, so let me just repeat that before we move on. Brakes. There's apply. There's a setting that maintains it, like self-laps on this loco or running in others. There's release. So whenever you're running it, make sure you are looking after this value here as the brake setting. The cutoff, you need to, when you accelerate, bring the cutoff back towards 0. And as you do so, you'll notice the boiler pressure will come back up again. So if I start accelerating, not doing it now because I think we're actually, some of our other details on the loco are a bit low at the moment. I'll get to that in a minute. So fire and coal are a bit low, so we're actually under firing the loco. So that's as good a time as any to get on and talk about that. So let's bring the train to a stop. So again, I've brought the brakes to 55.2 and then I've set them to self-lap, so we've got a nice controlled stop. If you're going downhill, this might just be maintaining your speed, so you've got quite nice control over that. Let's get stopped, and then what we'll do is we'll have a look at coaling and watering. So these are these two controls on the HUD. You've got this one, which is your water. We'll do that one first. You've got 2,200 gallons in the tender here, and you've got 84% in the main loco itself. If you click this button, it will start putting water in. When you put water in, you'll notice the percentage goes up, the water in the tender goes down. It also hurts your boiler pressure, because if you think about it, you're putting all this cold water, or reasonably cold water, into your nice hot boiler, and it's having an effect, which is not a nice one. So what you can do is, if you find that your boiler pressure is going too high and you're constantly using the and you're constantly blowing the safeties, do you need to put water in? If you do, now's a great time to get water in, because that will help make it blow the safeties less if you've overfired it and you're underusing the loco. So if I press the water on again, you'll notice that the boiler pressure is now going down. Right, don't overwater it. Don't think it will matter on this loco. Some locos, if you overwater them, what happens is that the water gets into the steam chest and the cylinders down here, and then you have to open the cylinder cocks or you destroy the loco. But enough about that. Leave that at 99%. What you generally want to do is let that one drop to about 50%. Sorry, I was playing up. Let that one drop to about 50% and then fill it back up. But always use the terrain that's going on. What are you doing with the loco to be your guide? If you're thundering up a hill and you're pushing the engine, working the engine hard, now is not a good time to put water in unless you desperately need it. And if you're going up a hill and you're about to crest the top of the hill, you absolutely should be getting water in if you can at all. Because what happens is you get over the hill, and all of a sudden you'll find you've got no water in the boiler. Because if you imagine water stays level, if the loco is going up on a hill, it looks like you've got more water, and then suddenly you haven't when it levels up. So that's the water. Coal is about the fire mass. The trick with this, so you click it again, 5.36 tons is how much you've got in the tender. 68% is how much fire mass is in the firebox. And what happens is that it's now coaling up. Now, what is the right value to coal that up to? That's the next trick. And I did cover this once in a previous, but let's have a look now. So if I press to get rid of the HUD and we have a look at the values on the top right here, the steam generation rate at the moment is 970. So let's start coaling, and steam generation rate is now going up. You see the fire mass here is 702 pounds, 703 pounds. Steam generation rate is going up. What we want to do is look and find out when that starts going down. Ignored steam usage, that's just the safeties. The steam generation rate is going up. Now it looks like this, essentially. What happens is that as your firing goes along, it's going up this graph. At some point you reach the what's called the ideal fire mass, and at that point steam generation rate starts to go down again. So what we're doing is we're coaling up until we find this number, steam generation rate, starts going down. So we're at 740 pounds, 746, 747. It's just started going down quite quickly. So 750 is the ideal fire mass. 75% actually is what this is showing up here. So now as you're driving, you're running this loco along the line. To get this boiler running at the absolute max efficiency it can possibly be, you want to be running at about 75% fire mass. So when you're going up a hill, keep that at 75%, and don't inject water unless you really need to, and keep your reverser in check at the appropriate setting for the speed you're going. Keep the brakes in the lap state, and you'll make the most efficient use you can of this train. So let's release the brakes, reverser forward, and get moving. So there's a couple of other things you want to check on the train. So at the moment the blower is on. The blower is really good for helping you build the steam when you're stationary. Not so good once you're moving, because effectively the air blowing over the top of the chimney is doing a better job than the blower can do. So Shift N turns the blower off. You've got dampers. Now you want to make sure your dampers are always open if you're trying to build steam. So you've got Shift M will close them, which will make you generate less steam, and press M to open them will make more steam. So let's put the HUD back on. So I'm applying brakes just to slow us down. Release the brakes, now we're back under the speed limit, and then put it in self-lapped. Let's stop here. And that really is all there is to driving a steam engine. So we're going to do we'll do this scenario now, and we'll put this all into practice. Although this is mostly a downhill scenario, I think, so it's not going to be too much of a stress. But we'll be able to exercise the brakes some. So let me just summarise one more time before we finish. Brakes, apply, lapped, stops it moving, release, makes it come off. This is the value that's important for your brakes. Cut off will control how much steam gets put into the cylinders. It's variable. You want to go no less than 15%. Sometimes you want to be no less than 20%. You can figure that out when you look at the... Actually, I'll do the title in a minute. When you look at what the train is doing, how much power you want, you'll find that as you move it back, if you're speeding up, you might have to move it back, and suddenly you find the loco speeds up, and it's because of how you're using the steam more efficiently and for the cylinders that are going on. You've got, and then what you'll find is as you pull it back, you might find that you actually start gaining boiler pressure again. Regulator just works like the regulator. Don't just slam it into 100%, build it up. If you slam it into 100%, you might find you get less steam or less power than if you'd actually put it at, say, 30%, particularly if you're starting off. Water, go from about 50% to about 90%. Don't put water in if you need steam on the boiler pressure. This is your boiler pressure, because putting water in will kill the boiler pressure. So use the surrounding environment around you to work out when it's best to put water in. If you're going downhill, you're not using water much, just keep tipping the water in so that when you hit a hill, you've already got a perfect machine ready to hit that hill. And fire mass, put the fire mass on. Use the F5 screen here, the steam generation rate and the fire mass number while you're coaling. So you start it coaling, and then you look up here, 749, 750, and as soon as steam generation rate starts going down like it is now, you've just hit the peak. and that's the ideal fire mass, so 75% on this locomotive. Yeah, so you always fire it to 75%. What you might do is fire it to say 77% or to 80%. Let it come back to say 70%. Fire it back to 80%. Depends how fast it's going up and down. If you need as much steam as possible, then micromanage it and fire it and keep it at 75%. Little and often is a good rule. But don't overfire it. If you put too much more than 75% in, you'll find the fire is as bad as if you let it go too low. And if you find you need less steam, then either overfire it or underfire it so that you're generating less steam. Too much steam means the safeties are going off all the time, which is just wasteful. I do it all the time, but you shouldn't do it. Right, that's a very quick tutorial on steam. We're going to go ahead and do this scenario now and put it all into practice. Back in a moment.